Subscribe or they will haunt you.
Graveyard shift workers of Reddit, what crazy, creepy, unbelievable things have you seen working in the dead of night? I'll give you 2 for the price of 1. As a pretext, I answer phones for an answering service. One night I took a call from some account we barely take calls for. It was dead air for a moment and suddenly this guy starts singing, "Hey there Little Red Riding Hood, you sure are looking good. You're everything a big bad wolf could want," and then went quiet despite me trying to get a response. He just kept breathing. Eventually I hung up on him. This one is disturbing in a different way. Another night a year or so ago I took a call for a vet's office from a woman that was in a panic because her cat was sick. She wasn't sure what was wrong, but I could hear the poor thing gargling as it meowed like it had blood in its lungs. The woman said the cat was all she had left, so I tried my best to get all her info down so I could get the vet ASAP. But the cat died before I could. The only reason I even knew that was because I heard it stop making noise. The poor woman lost it. She began bawling hysterically and screaming, begging the cat to get up, and then begged God not to take the cat because she'd have nobody left. After I realized there was nothing I could do or say because she walked away from the phone, I quietly hung up and just kinda sat there for a minute. The call has stuck with me for a while. This is depressing and real. I used to work nights for our state road authority, working on traffic signals. I only heard this story. Apparently a truck was carrying a drum of human body parts for disposal and the drum fell off the truck on one of our freeways. Road patrol guy called in and said there's arms and legs all over the place out here. My brother and I were driving through Montana in the middle of the night and got held up near Bozeman because a semi had taken out a passenger van with 6 or 7 people in it. We only have that estimation because we both sat mute while we watched parts being taken out of the van. It just so happened the accident was seconds old when we got to it. A truck driving the opposite direction flashed us with alarming "slow down now" frequency, and we did. The driver of the semi was physically fine, but the cops interviewing him parked on the shoulder next to us, and we could hear him as he wailed and sobbed and apologized. We were watching the EMT crew pull a head attached to a neck and part of an arm while the driver started begging the cops for forgiveness. We sat there for 5 hours. The cops explained to us being close up and getting out to smoke after a while that it was in no way the semi-driver's fault. It's on my top 5 things I would like to unremember. Arms and legs all over the place. That's man. But if that's not the top thing you'd like to forget, what the is? The easiest offhand was a city I lived in had above ground light rail. I was just exiting a business I frequented when I heard, kind of like Obi-Wan put it, like a large number of voices screaming out. Then silence, except instead of silence it was the sound of a guy stepping in front of the train. The best description I have ever come up for the sound was like slamming a 30-pound side of beef onto a carton of eggs. Trivial though it may be, I'm a line cook and part of working in that culture as a chick is having people f***ing hate you just for existing. One such manager came off of a break and picked up a pan of ear-boiling oil. It was a dungeon of a kitchen, low visibility, and in the way he picked it up it coated him from his jaw to his wrist. His reaction was to freeze and explain to us all that it was fine, and he was fine and everything was fine. He was so far into shock it was eerie. I hated the guy who happily and frequently crowed that I had no place in a kitchen because of. But the injury and the smell. Cooked people don't smell that much different from cooked any other mammal. I would really like to forget the conversation I had with my mother's surgeon when he told us all she's going to die any minute. Not going there. I'd like to forget it so much I refuse to. Give it dignity and type it out. More death, dying, complicated crap. There you have it. Around 12 years ago I was working security at a small company's headquarters in New York City. My partner for the night had called in sick, so I had to work from 12 to 6 all by my lonesome. Now normally, this wouldn't be a problem. I just had to sit in the back room, watch some cameras, and occasionally head out for a sweep. Nothing to it, right? Well, as it turns out, one of the employees had stayed in the building after hours and had managed to avoid my coworker's sweep from the previous shift. I first noticed a movement in my peripheral vision on one of the screens, and then again a few minutes later. This was odd, because I was used to quiet nights in this particular building. I was a little scared when I headed out from my sweep, but it was my job, so I grabbed my flashlight and headed out to begin. I had to start the sweep in one big hallway, and right as I entered, I saw a flash of movement at the end of it. At this point, I was sufficiently freaked out. I stood frozen for a minute or so, looking into the semi-darkness, unsure of what to do. The decision was taken out of my hands, however, as I heard a gunshot resound down the hallway. In what was the scariest moment of my life, I slowly walked down that hallway to investigate. I reached the end, and saw to my left that the president's office light was on. Slowly, I approached the door and creaked it open. Scared shitless. What I saw will forever haunt me. The man had taken a seat in the president's chair and shot himself in the head with a pistol, splattering blood and brains all over the floor and the wall. Apparently this guy was having problems at home, and because the president was supposedly a total asshole to him, he decided to off himself and scare the crap out of the president at the same time. In any case, I threw up a few times and called the police. I got the next 2 weeks off. I still have nightmares about it sometimes. I work at this shitty local fast food joint, which I won't name. Anyways, one night me and one other guy have to run the whole damn place because the manager can't be bothered to do his job. I don't get scared easily, but it gets spooky when it gets late. Like, I'm running to the dumpster and back, then this that I work with starts making up this bullshit story about some serial killer, which ordinarily wouldn't bother me, but it's late. Then shit goes from bad to worse. The lights on the inside reflecting off the glass doesn't let us see out very far, but we can hear a guy kinda scraping, if that word makes sense, at the door. I turn and make eye contact and his eyes are fucking dinner plates. He kinda squeaks out a sentence. All I made out sounded something like, "the hash-slinging slasher." I used to work in a hospital in the IT department, and we did a number of overnight rollouts as well as on-call work/response when issues occurred overnight. Many weird things happened, or appeared to happen. The thing that struck me as oddest was when I saw the coroner running at full speed down the corridor in the opposite direction, towards the morgue. This guy, an older guy in his 50s or so, was going at full speed. I had never seen him above an amble before, but this time he was really going for it. As he got close to me he yelled out of the way. I got another live one. I am not sure what was more disturbing, the fact that he was dealing with what I could only assume was a dead body that now appeared to be alive, or the fact he said another. Where do I begin? As a security guard in a large shopping mall situated downtown, drunk man falls off a balcony and lands headfirst onto the ground below. He lived, but he had some seriously nasty wounds. A man with an apparent mental handicap used the mailroom of an attached business tower as his bathroom. A large puddle of piss accompanied by shit smeared down the wall. You could tell he was squatting up against the wall. How he got into the tower was beyond us. Didn't see him enter when we viewed the security camera footage. Only saw him leave. Didn't mind this one actually. Finishing up a night shift, I'm patrolling one of the business towers roughly on 20th floor or so, and find an office door ajar. Turned out to be one of the empty offices, and the property manager must have forgotten to close the door all the way on her way out. While clearing it, I just happened to look out the window. Across the street from this building is a hotel. I see a very fit and attractive woman opening her blinds while completely nude. I'm not ashamed to say I took a second, much longer look. As a night security guard for another company situated in many locations across the city, patrolled a construction yard for a new seminary, no less. Saw a guy rave dancing in the middle of the yard. Clearly not supposed to be there, I approach, ask what he's doing, and he lunges at me with a knife. Fortunately, I was wearing my stab vest, so there was no penetration into my lower abdomen, but he broke the protective plating within the vest. Patrolling a Ford dealership, I notice a guy peeking into windows of cars on the lot. I ask him how he's doing, etc. Just striking up conversation to find out who is what he's doing. Before I even finish asking him how he is, I find myself staring down the barrel of a handgun, presumably 9mm. Scared shitless, I find myself unable to move, except my hands went up over my head before I even realized what I was in the middle of. I clearly remember hearing the firing mechanism click against the bullet, but it did not fire. Without thinking, I pressed the emergency alert button on my radio, run and duck behind a car, and immediately described the suspect in as much detail as I could. Police, K9, and helicopter dispatched, and find the guy hiding under a cat tractor in a nearby heavy equipment dealership. Patrolling a rather sketchy apartment building with my partner, we found ourselves having to arrest some chick for assault by trespass. She spat in my partner's face after we attempted to escort her from the property. She did not live there and had no reason to be in the building. A guy, unrelated to the initial incident, saw me trying to place my handcuffs on this chick and decides it would be a good idea to football tackle me. I find myself unable to breathe and coughing up blood. Contusions to left lung was the cause while defending myself from a drunk high. 6'5 plus, 200 pounds plus man. I'm 5'7 and 170 pounds. Backup arrives, along with police, and we tackle and arrest the man for assault as well as assault on a peace officer. Tried to trip kick one of the police officers. When the court date finally comes, he shows up wearing a leather jacket, dirty jeans, a ripped t-shirt, and smelling like weed. He shouted in court, claimed I tried to put him in a headlock, which wouldn't have been relevant anyway. Needless to say, he was convicted. I'll post more if you guys wanna hear em. Roughly 5 years ago, I was working janitorial in a mall in British Columbia. The task I was assigned was to clean all the main entrances to the mall. Pretty basic: mop floors, clean windows, vacuum rugs. And it was weird to see people walking around the exterior of the mall for a few reasons. Large parking lot, and it's really late at night. This random drunk dude wanders up to the main doors, waves at me and asks how I'm doing. I wave back and say fine. He then whips out his penis and starts trying to pee on me through the small crack in the door. Luckily, the crack isn't that big, and I'm quick enough to get out of the way of the stream that makes it through the door. He started laughing, and as I stood in shock, staring at him, a police officer flashes his lights and the guy starts to run. He didn't make it very far. Apparently, security was watching me on camera almost getting pissed on, so he called the cops. Watched the video with him. Many lols were had. I work at a crisis nursery, which is a child care facility that provides emergency and respite care for children under the age of 7. I used to work graveyards all the time. I have to say first that I am absolutely a non-believer in paranormal stuff at all. That being said, at 2 in the morning in a dark room when you and 2 or 3 other girls in their 20s are the only adults in the building, shit gets creepy sometimes. Now the facility I work in was named for a child that was beat to death by one of the parents. The nursery was started in their name as a way to hopefully prevent another child dying a violent death at the hands of a stressed out caregiver. So the story that goes around is that this kid's spirit haunts the nursery and is mostly active at night. I get told this on one of my first grave shift and I'm like, whatever, scare the newbie. That stuff doesn't really bother me. Well, later that night one of the kids got up to use the bathroom. One of my co-workers helped the kid back to bed and returned to where we were all sitting. Pretty soon, someone hears the water running in the bathroom. They go check it out. Yep, it's running. The co-worker swears up and down that it was off when she and the kid left. Kind of weird, but I honestly think they were just trying to scare me. Well, They tell me that one of the reasons that everyone thinks this place is haunted is that many different people have reported different children asking about that kid, as in, why doesn't that kid have to go to bed, while they're pointing at nothing. I brushed it off, basically forget about it. A few weeks later, I was in the sleep room, the bedroom where all the kids sleep. There must always be an adult in the room with the children. By myself, I'm just chilling, reading a book with a book light. The rest of the room is pitch black and silent. All of a sudden, this kid, probably 4-5, sits bolt upright in bed and says, "Hey, how come they aren't asleep? Why do they get to play? I want to play too," all while pointing at a wall with no kids anywhere in the vicinity. Instant crazy shivers all over me. I was so scared I almost screamed. I refused to be alone in there from that moment on.